Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya. Naram Chaiva Narottamam. Devim Saraswatim Vyasam. Tato Jayam Udiraye. Nashtaprayashvabhadrishu. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavatyutama Shloke. Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. So, on the first day, on Thursday, we started little discourse on the beginning stages of spiritual development, starting with Shraddha, and then Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya. And we started talking about the development spiritually and compared the spiritual development with the development of a child. Because in reality, we are all, from the spiritual point of view, small children. I was trying to elaborate on this metaphor of spiritual development, how the spiritual development is similar to the development of a child. The growth of a child, because in reality, as much as the child is growing by developing his ego, his understanding of who he is in the material world, in the material sense, in a similar way, when we grow spiritually, the essence of this growth is to understand who we are in a spiritual sense. What we're supposed to do, how we're supposed to speak, how we're supposed to think, how we're supposed to feel. And we were describing that this is a gradual process. Initially, small baby, he cannot do anything. The only thing which he can do is to trust his mother. He cannot even choose the mother. The mother is given to him. So in the similar way, when we meet with devotees, it's arranged by God. It is said when we have sincere desire inside our heart, God is arranging our meeting with devotees, and devotee influence our heart, and this Shraddha starts. And Shraddha is nothing but spiritual babyhood. When we have this initial trust without much knowledge, without much understanding, but especially yesterday we were talking about different kinds of Shraddha, that it's very essential and important that from the very beginning the seed of Shraddha. And in reality, what is Shraddha? Shraddha is an infinitesimal particle of prema. It's a seed which is supposed to develop into the full-fledged love of God. So in order to develop properly, the seed should be proper. And yesterday I was talking about this Lokik Shraddha and Shastriya Shraddha. Krishna himself says in Bhagavad Gita, Tasmat Shastra Pramanam Te. Shastra should be the main praman, the main evidence, the main proof of the truth, the source of right knowledge. So we are growing, and Shastra or Shastric phase, or Bhaktivinoda Thakur sometimes call it Tattvik Shraddha, should be the driving force behind our growth, as much as the mother's milk is the nourishment for the growth for the little baby. Without mother's milk, the baby will not grow. In the same way, we will not develop spiritually unless we get the milk of Mother Veda. Sometimes Prabhupada called Vedas or Vedic scriptures as mother. They are our mother. And the spiritual master or sadhu whom we meet, I mean, he is father, but he is giving us the milk of the mother. He's supplying us the milk of the mother. He speaks from Shastra. And it's very important. And yesterday I was describing different lakshanas or different signs, how we should determine whether our Shraddha is in Shastra or in something else. Because there is this Lokika Shraddha, which is conventional, which is social Shraddha. And it's very common when people traditionally religious, or they take religion as their tradition, you know, like people say, I'm Russian, therefore I'm Orthodox Christian. They don't know anything about Orthodox Christianity, but because they are Russians, they're Orthodox Christian. And so in the similar way, you know, we're Hindus. Why we're Hindus? Because we're born. Nobody knows what Hinduism is and you know what it is, but yeah, holy or something like this. So this Lokika Shraddha is very much different from Shastriya Shraddha, and we spoke about this yesterday. Today I will continue this same topic, and I will go to next stages of spiritual development, beginning stages. What is Sadhu Sangha? What is the difference between Sadhu Sangha and Shraddha? And as I said, as much as the child undergoes certain crises by going from stage to stage in his development, there is a special branch of psychology which is called developmental psychology, which actually describes the crises which every one of us undergoes while growing. So in the same way, we have our spiritual crises. When we become little weak in our faith or some and crisis is actually very good because it's the sign that you reach certain stage and you have to develop further. So therefore, I thought it's important for us to understand what does it mean, what is the difference between Shraddha and Sadhu Sangha, and what is the difference, what should take place when Sadhu Sangha turns into Bhajana Kriya, and what is the difference between Bhajana Kriya and Anartha Nivriti, and how Anartha Nivriti ultimately comes to Nishta. And I gave this very important metaphor, which I want to repeat quickly, but it's important to understand. I said that in the beginning, little baby can only trust. Then when he becomes in his Kumara age, from 1 to 5, then he learns to speak. In a similar way, when we are reaching Sadhu Sangha stage, we are learning how to speak in terms of spiritual language. You know, we have to, anyway, I will describe it. So first, baby has to trust, then he has to learn how to speak, then he has to learn how to act properly. What he should do, what he shouldn't do, that's Pauganda age, and that's basically Bhajana Kriya. And then, when he reaches his teenagers, when he becomes Kaishore, then he learns how to sing. So in the similar way, when we reach the stage of Anartha Nivriti, we should learn how to sing spiritually. Initially, we're just speaking, repeating something without really understanding what it means. Then we try to do something cooperatively. It's very important to act cooperatively on the stage of Bhajana Kriya together. Learn cooperation, learn to respect other devotees, learn to be in the society of devotees. That's very important. Then the next stage, we should think, we become conscious. Unfortunately, before that, our practice of Krishna consciousness is little unconscious. It's natural. As much as the little child, he is not really capable of properly thinking or deeply thinking before he reaches teenage age. And then in the next stage, the child learns how to feel. These elevated emotions and feelings are coming only after that. So, therefore, before reaching Nishta, there is no question about spiritual emotions. Any emotions which we have before is just a shadow, little glimpse, something which is given to us, which is coming from the higher realm. But the real education, emotional education or emotional formation starts when we reach the stage of Nishta, when we become very humble, Trinada Pisunicinata Arora Pisahishnuna, very tolerant, and from that stage onwards, our real spiritual development starts. So that's a little repetition of what we gone so far. And I want to read a verse and purport which describes these early stages of development from Srimad Bhagavatam. It's a famous verse, Shushrushoch Shardanana Seva Sudeva Katharuchik Syan Mahat Seva Vipra Punya Tirtha Nishevanad. O twice-born sages, Vipra, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all vice, great service is done. By such service one gains affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva. And Prabhupada, I will read part of the purport. The conditioned life of a living being is caused by his revolting against the Lord. There are men called Deva, or godly living entities, and there are men called Asuras, or demons, who are against the authority of the Supreme Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita 16th chapter, a vivid description of Asuras is given, in which it is said that Asuras are put into lower and lower states of ignorance, life after life, and so sink to the lower animal forms and have no information about the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead. These Asuras are gradually rectified to God consciousness by the mercy of Lord's liberated servitors in different countries according to the supreme will. Such devotees of God are very confidential associates of the Lord, and when they come to save human society from the dangers of godlessness, they are known as a powerful incarnations of the Lord, as sons of the Lord, as servants of the Lord, or as associates of the Lord, but none of them falsely claim to be God themselves. This is a blasphemy declared by the Asuras, and the demoniac followers of such Asuras also accept pretenders as God or His incarnation. In the revealed scriptures, there is a definite information of the incarnation of God. No one should be accepted as God or incarnation of God unless he is confirmed by the revealed scriptures. The servants of God are to be respected as God by the devotees who actually want to go back to Godhead. Such servants of God are called Mahatmas or Tirthas, and they preach according to particular time and place. The servants of God urge people to become devotees of the Lord. They never tolerate being called God. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was God himself according to the indication of the revealed scriptures, but he played the part of a devotee. People who knew him to be God addressed him as God, but he used to block his ears with his hands and chant the name of Lord Vishnu. He strongly protested against being called God, although undoubtedly he was God himself. The Lord behaves so to warn us against unscrupulous men who take pleasure in being addressed as God. Anyway, so I wanted to read this verse because according to our acharyas, this verse describes this dynamic. Please listen very carefully. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, by explaining this verse, he says that first is the service. Our spiritual development or our transformation from the conditioned state of life starts when we serve or appreciate a devotee. Initial service doesn't mean real service, it's just little appreciation. If we see somebody and we develop little appreciation to his purity, to his sincerity, to his endeavors, or to whatever, even little appreciation means beginning of our spiritual life. Without this appreciation, so many people met with Srila Prabhupada, who became devotees, who were capable of appreciating him. How this appreciation is taking place because of our Bhakti Unmukhi Sukriti. If we have some pious credit, or at least even no credit, but somehow or other we see the devotee and we say he is good, our spiritual life starts. There is a very interesting story which one disciple of Srila Prabhupada tells how he became a devotee. He was a hippie and he was a teenager. He was 16 years old. His name is Mahabudhi. He developed this very nihilistic attitude towards everyone, as all teenagers usually develop. I know better. And then he saw in California, where he lived, a big poster. The Guru of the International Society of Krishna Consciousness, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And he became really angry. He said, I prove that he's not the Guru. I know better. Who he thinks he is, and all these fanatical followers, this and that, His Divine Grace, all this nonsense. Anyway, so he had a mission in life. His mission was to disprove that Prabhupada was a guru. So without thinking twice, he takes his car, he's in one little town in California, and drives to Los Angeles to meet with this guru. And in the car, he's trying to figure out what are the criteria of guru. And first he says, Guru should read my thoughts. That's the first criteria. If he can read, he's a guru. And then what else was there? Anyway, he had 3 or 4 criteria for guru, which he figured out on the way while driving the car. And he comes to see Prabhupada, and Prabhupada is there. He's giving darshan. Sannyasis are sitting there, and somebody brings this young chap there, and Prabhupada looks at him, and Prabhupada immediately sees through him. And he immediately sees everything which is going on in his head. And while speaking, Prabhupada addresses directly him. And he says, somebody thinks that Guru should know what is going on in our head. That's what he starts with. and so on and so forth. So, one after another, Srila Prabhupada proved to him that he is the Guru. Like this on the spot. And he's impressed. He was very impressed. So he goes back and he thinks, what shall I do now? It's really something special. And then he got some savings, $1,000, and he says, I will donate this $1,000 to this guru, to this A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So he drives back, and he's shy because Prabhupada really smashed him in the first meeting, and he doesn't want to see him anymore. But he developed this appreciation, little appreciation to Prabhupada. So he comes to him, and he comes to the temple, and he gives to one devotee this check for $1,000 and say, please give it to Swamiji. And this devotee says, okay. He goes up and he gives this check to Swamiji. And then he comes back and he says, Swamiji told me to tell you that you understand everything right. You got it right. So anyway, so what I mean to say that our spiritual life starts when we develop little appreciation to spiritual people. When we meet with a sadhu. Who is sadhu? Sadhu is the Sanskrit word sadhu is coming from the root sad. Sad means to achieve something. Sadhu is somebody who practices some spiritual practice to achieve spiritual goal and who engages others to do it. Sadhnoti sadhayati iti sadhu. Sadhu is somebody who is who really knows what is the goal of life. And if you develop little appreciation, then shraddha of faith comes. And if you're lucky, this is proper shraddha, faith. And then it is said, Shushushok Shradananasya Vasudeva Katharuchik Syan Mahat Sevaya. First is Mahat Sevaya. First you start serving the Mahat, the great devotee of the Lord, or somebody who is great, who is real sadhu. And then Punya Tirtha Nishevanat, specifically it is said here, Punya Tirtha Nishevanat. And the common translation of this phrase would be Punya Tirtha Nishevanat, you start serving Tirtha. You start serving the holy places. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and our acharyas, while translating this line, they take the meaning of Tirtha as Guru. Because Amarkosh, the dictionary, says that one of the meanings of Tirtha, Tirtha means the holy water, the Charanamrita. Tirtha means the holy place, and Tirtha means Guru. Because the word Tirtha is coming from Sanskrit root tri, and which means to swim, and also means to cross over. So Tirtha means the place where you can cross from this material sphere to spiritual sphere of existence. And Tirtha means Guru, because Guru is the one who helps you to do this. Therefore, Punya Tirtha Nishevanat, that's the next stage of spiritual development. You develop some Shraddha. Shraddha means respect. Shraddha means appreciation. Shraddha doesn't mean blind faith. Shraddha means appreciation of a spiritual person. But then the next stage after this appreciation should come, which is very important. When Punya Tirtha Nishevanat, you start more consciously serve this person as a guru. You start hearing him, consistently hearing him. That's the next stage of spiritual development. That's the difference between Shraddha and Sadhu Sangha. On the stage of Sadhu Sangha, you start hearing with the idea that you're taking some commitment. Sometimes people, they have difficulty, they develop some Shraddha. And that's the crisis in this transition between Shraddha, or first stage of spiritual development, and the next stage of spiritual development. Because when we coming to Sadhu Sangha actually means that I'm taking some commitment to follow what I hear. There are so many people who hear spiritual philosophy, hear for years and years and years. And sometimes we in ISKCON call them friends of Krishna. Yeah. They're friends of Krishna. What does it mean? It doesn't mean anything. It means that they're little favorable. It means that there is little appreciation is there. But it doesn't go further, it doesn't develop into commitment, because in reality, if you have Shraddha and if you listen carefully, then the desire to follow should develop in your heart. And that's exactly what is said here, because Punya Tirtha Nishavanat, you start serving the Guru. Serving means following. And as I said, in this stage, first stage of spiritual development, when you develop little desire to follow Guru, then your duty is to learn the language. As much as the little child is learning the language, how to speak, in the same way, the first duty, when in the stage of sadhu sangha, even before you take initiation, you have to get the basic definitions of everything. According to Vedic culture, when the brahmacharis were grown up, the first thing which they learn, do you know what they learn first? Amar Kosh. Because Amar Kosh gives the definition of the basic words. And in a similar way, when we start our spiritual journey, the first thing which we do after developing some little appreciation, after developing some initial phase or trust into Vedic culture, into Vedic scripture, into Bhagavad Gita, into the society of people who follow Vedic culture, the next very important stage is to learn proper definitions of the terms. Because otherwise, we will not be able to speak the common language. The common language is very important, and common language means common understanding. When we say karma, we should all understand what karma means. When we say bhakti, we should all understand what bhakti means, because people have sometimes very weird conception of what bhakti is and what it is. And therefore, Srila Rupa Goswami, he wrote this Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is a paribhasha grantha. Grantha where he gives definition. Very clear, concise definition according to the rules of Nyaya. The definition, it's the whole science how to give definitions, how to define terms. So I also mentioned in our first discourse when we were talking about this that Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that in the beginning it's very important to hear, not just to hear a little bit from here, a little bit from there, but he says that for proper spiritual development, it's very important to have krama shuddha shravana dasha. When you hear systematically. And systematically basically means in the initial stage of our spiritual journey, it's very important to understand what we mean when we say devotional service. What bhakti means. Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karma dana vritam anukulyena krishnanu shilanam bhaktir uttama. What is bhakti? The definition is given, and we really have to understand the depths of this definition. The definition of the basic terms. I can see how this, we were talking with Prabhakarji about how there is so much diversity is there. And in one sense, diversity is natural, but diversity, when it becomes too much diversity and no unity, it becomes a big problem, because people start fighting. It's amazing. There are so many religions, and basically religions agree that there is God. There is one God, and at least some religions agree that there is one God, but then, even this is not possible. I remember I was a part of Hindu delegation in the Millennium Convention, Interfaith Convention in United Nations. It was a big delegation, so many different faiths came, representative of faith, Christians, so different denominations of Christians, Muslims, Jewish people, Hindus, and some tribal people from Africa. And on the first day, one Japanese journalist somehow or other got hold of me and said, "What do you expect from this conference, from this symposium, from this convention?" And I said, I didn't expect anything. So I knew all these interfaith gatherings. They're quite, they're not very productive usually. And indeed, it was very unproductive at the end. But he said, "What do you expect?" I said, "I expect that at least people will," I thought a little bit and I said, "that at least people understand that there is one God and everyone worships the same God and there is no use of quarreling over it." And then this Japanese person, he made his eyes little round, as much as Japanese people can make their eyes round. He was very surprised. And he said, "We don't believe in God at all. We are Buddhists." So there's no God according to Buddhists. And so my idealistic hope was shattered even before the conference started. What I mean to say is that people, they have very diverse idea. Why? Because they don't have common language. They have very different definitions of this, and they start quarreling over trivial things. God is this or God is that. So therefore, to know common understanding, and for us as a society, we're trying to build a society. Society means to know the proper language. Proper language means to know the proper terms, how we use the terms. What is Shraddha? Sometimes people say it's faith. No, it's not faith. It's Shastriya Shraddha. It's faith into Shastra. It's not even faith into Shastra. I gave yesterday the definition of Shastriya Shraddha. What is Shastriya Shraddha? Who remembers? No. Shastrartha Vishwas. The trust into the meaning of the Shastra. Not just even belief in Shastra, but the trust into the meaning of the Shastra. That's what we mean when we say Shraddha of faith. So it's very important, and the initial period, Krama Shuddha Shravana Dasha, means that we should systematically hear and understand the language. Otherwise, and I know, people heard a little bit from here, heard a little bit from there, and then they start quarreling. Sometimes there are debates in our society. People are, this is right or this is wrong. And I listen to this and I can't understand why people are so agitated. They're speaking about the same thing, but because they don't really have common language. That's the problem, no common language. Therefore, initial stage, sadhu sangha, means we learn from sadhu common language, how to speak, what we mean, what is this philosophy all about. So that's what it is. And as I said, this is very important at this stage to understand that when we hear something, it means some responsibility. I remember very clearly when I first time read Bhagavad Gita. It was long ago. It was actually almost 40 years back. I was young person in Russia. I didn't know anything. I read Bhagavad Gita. But my first thought after this, I was so impressed by Bhagavad Gita. It was very short. It was not Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. It was very short Bhagavad Gita, only verses. But my first initial thought was that this book, after reading this book, I should change something in my life. I cannot live the same life as I lived before. Because after reading this book, I felt that there was this sense of responsibility. I am responsible to change my life. I would feel myself as a hypocrite if I wouldn't change my life. And luckily, somebody told me that you should become vegetarian to start with. I said, okay, if this is implied, I will do it. And, here I am, sitting in front of you. But again, as I said, this is the stage where we have to understand that there is some responsibility. Hearing is not recreation. Sometimes people come, being always speaking, I know that there is a pressure from the audience. Tell a joke. Too much philosophy. Too long, too much philosophy. Now it's time for joke, because people, they have this idea that it's a recreation, it's entertainment, manoranjanam. It's just, we came here and I'm, here is the entertainer in orange clothes, in saffron clothes, sitting and trying to entertain. No. That's not correct. The real purpose is that we hear, and again, as I said, hearing means taking responsibility. The proper hearing is that, I heard something and I should think, what should I change in my life? Maybe something is not really correct. Maybe something should be changed. That's the proper hearing. Otherwise, it's useless. It goes into one ear, comes from another ear. God very wisely made two ears. So that it can go right through, no problem. So sadhu sangha means responsibility, because again, who is sadhu? We have to understand, sadhu is somebody who goes to a goal, who is not uselessly living his life. Sadhnati, he wants to achieve the goal. Therefore, he performs sadhana, and the purpose of sadhu is also to engage others in the same process. And therefore, as I said, this developmental crisis in this stage of sadhu sangha, sometimes people, they have faith and they feel this compelling force, but they're hesitant to take responsibility. They're really hesitant. Therefore, sometimes people, they hear, come, and they practice, they even chant, but they don't take initiation. Because initiation is a very serious step. And one should not be in a hurry to do it, but one should not be also procrastinating for too long. It means that something is wrong, something is not really happening inside. Something is not taking place inside. And there are stories of this sort, of course. We can look around, we can look in ourselves. This is an important stage. And therefore it is said specifically here, Mahat Seva Viprah, first you appreciate, then Shraddha develop, Shraddhayan Shushrushoh Shraddhayanasya. Shraddhanasya. Then first Mahat Seva, then Shraddha, then Punya Tirtha Nishevanat. And after Punya Tirtha Nishevanat, when you really take responsibility, then the most important thing takes place, Shushrushoch, the desire to hear appears. The passion to hear. Shushrushoch, it's a very special Sanskrit word which means the one who is very eager to hear. Like Mumukshu is somebody who is very eager to get liberation. Or Shushrushu. Shushrushu means somebody who is very eager to hear, but conventionally this word, Sanskrit word, means the one who is eager to serve. Because hearing and serving is the same. Hearing is service. Hearing, again, is not entertainment. Hearing means service, and it implies that there is some impetus to serve. So this desire to hear, real passion to hear, with the meaning, with the deep meaning which is there in the heart, only comes when we take responsibility. Without taking responsibility towards a special path and the person who represents this path, there is no question of developing real taste for hearing. Vasudeva Katharuchi. Vasudeva Katharuchi, Ruchi, or interest into the spiritual matters, into the Krishna Katha or Hari Katha or Vasudeva Katha, the stories which are there in Vedic literature, in Bhagavad Gita, on Srimad Bhagavatam. This real passion and deep interest only develops after you take responsibility, take initiation, and then the next stage of spiritual development starts, which is called Bhajana Kriya. And Bhajana Kriya means the developing this taste for hearing more and more and more. And again, it should be systematic. First, you study Bhagavad Gita with all the basic knowledge which is there. Prabhupada used to say that Bhagavad Gita is the ABC of spiritual knowledge, but who knows what is ABC? I heard another explanation of what is ABC, ABCD. ABCD means, this is what I heard from American Indians who live in America. ABCD means American born confused Deshi. You're born in America and you're completely confused, but because you're Indian and so much confusion is taking place. But anyway, ABC means Bhagavad Gita. Not to be confused, as Prabhakaraji said, Bhagavad Gita is a special book to help us free from confusion. Because Arjuna in the beginning is confused. He says himself, Dharma Samuda Cheta. I am completely confused about my duty. I don't know who I am. And at the end, Nashta Moha Smritir Labdha, my confusion is gone. My confusion is completely. So that's when we start. Initially, we learn the definitions and the basic terms, but Bhajana Kriya starts when we systematically learn scriptures. It means Bhagavad Gita and then Srimad Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada again stresses it. Srimad Bhagavatam doesn't mean Rasa Lila. Sometimes people, when they have this Bhagavatam Patha, it's only Rasa Lila, nothing else. And everyone is, oh, Rasa Lila, yeah, very nice, very, very nice. And nothing changes in the heart. Prabhupada says there is a very specific design behind Srimad Bhagavatam. And it means that you have to go from one canto to another canto to another canto. And then you reach the 10th canto and Rasa Lila is there. Of course, it's the culmination of Srimad Bhagavatam, but you start with the first canto. What is the first canto? First canto is the praman. It's adhikar. The first canto is explaining the adhikar, the qualification which you need to go to the spiritual journey. So that's what bhajana kriya means. And as I said, in the beginning we learn to trust, then we learn to speak. Bhajana kriya means we learn to serve. We learn to serve together. Because Vedic culture is about doing everything together. Vedic culture is very much about cooperation. Without cooperation, you will never reach God. Because in the kingdom of God, everyone is cooperating with each other. And we only know how to quarrel with each other. That we're expert, you know, how to. So Vedic culture is about this, and bhajana kriya is about this. To hear together and to sing together. Kirtan means bahubir militva kirtanam, it is sankirtanam. Sankirtanam means when we sing together. And singing together means our hearts should be together. Sometimes we know, sometimes we have kirtan and it's, oh my goodness, it's such a suffering, it's such a misery because everyone is, you know, you physically can feel that everyone is thinking about something else. You know? Physically they're together, but the hearts are not together. So bhajana kriya means how to do things together. To Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam together. That we should speak about Krishna, we should think about Krishna, we should hear about Krishna together. How to do it in cooperation with each other. Therefore I said, as much as in the initial stages of spiritual development, the association with seniors, with Guru is important. On the stage of bhajana kriya, the very important addition is there, the association with equals, with peers, with friends. It's extremely important. Without this, there is no spiritual development. When the child grows, at one point he has to have friends. Without, you know, making friendship with other people, he will not develop in a proper person. He will not know how to respect equals. He may respect those who are senior, but he will never understand what it means to respect those who are on the same platform as him. And that's the essence of bhajana kriya. Very important stage of development. And then anartha nivriti comes, and anartha nivriti, it's a very, I will have to finish soon. I will not go much further, but I wanted at least to come to this anartha nivriti stage. As I said, first the child learns how to speak, then he learns how to act, and then he starts learning how to sing. And it basically means it's a very critical stage of spiritual development when people understand that before that there was no Krishna consciousness. Even though for 20 years I was practicing Krishna consciousness, but I've seen this crisis. I went through this crisis in my life. You understand that you wasted 20 years of your life. You think you wasted 20 years of your life. It was not the waste, it was the preparation. But you understand that all your practice was mechanical, was not really deep. You were doing this because everyone is doing, that's fine. But actually, anartha nivriti means that you start doubting about everything. It's a very painful stage of development, as much as teenagers start doubting everything. And it's good. In what sense it's good? You have to really, consciously decide whether whatever I was doing right or not. Because so many things, before you reach this stage, you're very happy. Usually the little children, they're very happy. In the Kumara, they're very happy. Paugan, they're very happy. When they become teenagers, there is a serious look in their face. And, very distrustful too. Because, again, they start thinking. And it's very important. It's very important because it's an inevitable stage of our spiritual growth where we have to reconsider many, many things. Something which we used to take for granted. So much so, I've seen people, they started doubting about everything, about Hare Krishna mantra, whether Lord Chaitanya was God or not. Before was no problem, but then they started, is he God or not? Let's consider. And it's good. We have to consider. Because initially we just, Krishna consciousness is so nice, prasadam is so good, and, kirtans and everything is so good. But then what we understand, what is very important at this stage, we realize that our goals were wrong. That in reality, before we reach the stage of anatta nivritti, we are in complete illusion that we are totally spiritual and that we are pure devotees, or maybe almost pure devotees. It's called PDS, Pure Devotee Syndrome. I'm completely pure. Hopefully it will be gone. It's a disease. So, but at one point we start understanding that it's very sobering. One not so beautiful day, we woke up and we realized that I'm not a pure devotee. I'm not a devotee at all. I haven't started it yet. I was just doing something. I didn't understand how important it is. So that's an important stage in our spiritual growth, the teenager period, which is difficult. Teenager period in our spiritual life is as difficult as the teenager's period in our material life. There are so many different problems which were never before. And sometimes, sometimes you see all these devotees who were there for 20 years, 30 years, and they become, initially everyone is so enthusiastic, it's so nice. And then they become really, really serious. It's good because something is important taking place in their heart. And as I said, you have to pass through this stage to come to another stage, which is called nishta, when the emotions will come. Our path is path of bhakti, and bhakti means spiritual emotions. And as it is said in Padma Puran, that you will never be able to develop spiritual emotions unless and until you get rid of material emotions. Shoka marsha dibih bhavair. It is said in this verse of Padma Puran, which is quoted by Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, that all these emotions starting with shoka and amarsha. Shoka means grief, and amarsha means anger. On the stage of nishta, people don't have anger. They don't have grief. Grief means you're Shudra. There is this very beautiful story from Upanishads when one Raikya Muni is speaking with one king, and king is very morose. And this Raikya Muni says, you're Shudra. Why? Because you're grieving. And this is actually the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. Asochanan vasochastvam, nanusha chanti pandita. Pandit is not grieving about what is not worthy of grief. Krishna is chastising Arjuna. You have grief, it means you're ignorant. So basically, this stage of nishta means when you got rid of all these material emotions. And if you still have these material emotions of anger, lust, greed, grief, it means that you're not there. It means that maybe you're not completely pure devotee yet. So that's the stage of nishta. And to come to this stage, this anartha nivritti is very much needed. Without anartha nivritti, you will never come to the stage of firm faith, when you develop real spiritual emotions. When your heart is free from these stressful emotions, emotions of material stress. Somebody has grief sometimes. Somebody is morose sometimes. Somebody has anger sometimes. No? So there is some room for improvement. There is something to do. Life is very exciting. Life of a devotee is very exciting. We have so much to do internally and externally, of course. But internal should go first. Our internal development should be our first priority. Only then, whatever we do externally will be proper. Otherwise, and that's what is taking place in the stage of anartha nivritti. We realized that we were too much externally engaged. And ultimately we were after, puja, labha, and pratishtha. All this subtle substitute of material lust, which are there. We wanted appreciation, we wanted honor. This is what is taking place in anartha nivritti stage. We realized that there was some falsity in our spiritual life. And we try to purge this falsity in spiritual life. And for that, at this moment, as I said, it's very important to help others. And this way, all the association is there. We're helping others, and by seeing their problem, we realize more clearly what is going on in our heart. And that helps to purify our heart more. And then we reach the stage of nishta where our real spiritual development starts. The preliminary stages, the material component of our consciousness is very strong still. The identification with the body, all the upadhis which are there, are very, very strong and very prominent in our consciousness. And from the stage of nishta, firm faith, onwards, when we purified our consciousness sufficiently, then the real spiritual journey will begin. So that's a little introduction to spiritual life. Welcome to this journey. Ravindra Swarup Prabhu, one disciple of Srila Prabhupada, he said that in ISKCON, there was many things was in ISKCON. Sometimes ISKCON is a very interesting organization. He said, I met many unexpected things in ISKCON. Sometimes you don't expect these things in spiritual organizations. He said, but there's one thing about ISKCON. I was never bored in ISKCON. Whatever else was there, I was never bored. So if we have this genuine spiritual hankering, eagerness to achieve some higher goal, And to get rid of all this, Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi, all this not very nice elements of material existence, and develop real love, spiritual love within the heart. We have to know the past very clearly, and we have to know where I am, and what is the task, what I'm supposed to do, what I'm supposed to learn, and how I'm supposed to deal with all these problems and other things which are there. So that was my little talk within these 3 days about the stages of spiritual development. There is much more which could be said, but I think it's enough. And I wish you very exciting spiritual journey. Maybe there are some questions. Otherwise, there is a lot of nuts.
Yes. Thank you for this wonderful class explaining the development of our spiritual consciousness. Hearing from the qualifications that you spoke about, Anartha Nivritti and Nishta, now at what stage does a jiva become eligible to get transported to the spiritual world? And if the answer is bhava or prema, when is this journey going to complete? And what's the hope?
That's a very interesting question. It really depends on your aspiration. If your aspiration is to get to Goloka Vrindavan, which is the highest realm in spiritual world, then only prema, nothing else. If you want liberation, Nishta is okay, no problem. If your goal is liberation, like Prabhupada said, that you develop your, dormant love of God in stages. It's there, but it may not be fully developed. And then you get to Vaikuntha, which is also nice. I mean, as I usually say, weather is good there. It's nice. It's a nice place. Vaikuntha, no problem. So, if this is your aspiration, then Nishta is enough. But if you want something higher, like we see in the story of Gop Kumar in Brihad Bhagavatamritam, he was going from stage to stage. He was born in different planets of the universe. He was associating with sages, but his aspiration was the highest goal. And then ultimately his guru came to him and said, "Oh, if you want the go back to the earth, be born in Vraj, develop your prema and go to Goloka Vrindavan." So it may take a couple of lifetimes. It may take some time. But it very much depends on association, actually. The real fuel of our spiritual development is association. So, depending on your association, it may take longer, or it may take, depending on the quality. And therefore, we have to be always hankering for association with those who are higher than us, more pure than us. That's very important. Always. Because Lord Chaitanya says, of course, we know this verse, we always repeat this verse, Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastra Hoy, Lava Matra Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Hoy, Lava Matra. And then everyone says, "Oh, Lava Matra Sadhu Sangha, I had Lava Matra Sadhu Sangha." No problem. Lava means 1/11th part of the second, we have more. But then he says, no, but in every stage, even in the stage of prema, you need sadhusanga. Even when you achieve the stage of prema. The next verse, the very next verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita says that even when you achieve the stage of prema, sadhusanga is still mukhya anga, is still the main limb of your practice. So sadhusanga is extremely important. And of course, there are two types of sadhusanga. Association with the scriptures is also sadhusanga. Therefore, Prabhupada says there is this Nitya Bhagavata Sevaya. You can associate with devotee Bhagavata and with the book Bhagavata. So if you don't have sadhusanga in the person, then always there is this chance for sadhusanga is there. More accessible. I wouldn't say it's easier. I wouldn't say it's easier because devotees are more merciful than Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam keeps its secrets inside. Doesn't reveal.
I mean, when we want to associate with the devotees, many times our modes and Purziva comes in the middle.
Yeah, that's also true. That's also true. That's also true. But still, modes are always coming, no problem. Any more questions? No? Otherwise, nuts are here. Yes.
What I understand is that during this process, we are going to have that period where we will start doubting everything.
Yeah.
So, what is your advice, Maharaj, to sustain our sadhana during that period?
When you reach this period, we will talk. I need to talk in advance. In the beginning, don't think about it in the beginning. Just take as much prasadam as possible, no problem. But be prepared, it will come. It's as if, you're a small child and you start thinking, what I will do when I become teenager. You will never figure it out. Okay, thank you very, very much. I was very happy to be with you. Thank you for your kindness and for your you were listening to me, tolerating me for so long. Thank you very much.